Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Shpodcast, the world's only podcast that is willing to stay 6 feet away from you, whether or not we're in the middle of a pandemic. I'm your host, SumitoMedia. Today, I'm joined by my co-host, Alex. What's going on, dude?
Hi, I'm Alex, and Latios and Latias don't require specific Pokemon to catch. The way that you get them is to beat the game, trigger the first sighting by watching the TV when you get back home, and then it'll start roaming. Then you fly to a route that is next to literally any route.
What are you saying right now?
The top comment is my intro. That's my thing.
That's the top comment from the last video, the entire guide on how to catch Latios and Latias?
I don't control democracy.
Okay. Well, I mean, at least you know how to catch them now, I guess.
Yeah.
That's good. Cool. How you been? How you been since the last episode? That was totally exactly 7 days ago.
Exactly 7 days ago. I've been good. I took that time in between 7 days ago to climb a fairly big mountain in Virginia.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I did Old Rag, which was a mistake every step of the way.
What is
when
I think, is it like hiking or is it like proper mountain climbing? Like, are you scaling the side of a mountain?
No, it's more like vaulting. If people say they're climbing it, it's not like they're not like free climbing it.
Wait, vaulting?
Like, you gotta like pull like a waist high, like, just pull yourself up a bunch of times.
That's what you did, or that's what people imagine?
No, that's what it is. People, if they say they climbed it like they were like scaling an actual cliffside, they're lying to you. Let me give you the rundown though from the beginning.
Yeah, give it to me.
Most people, when they do Old Rag, first of all, it's like a 10-mile hike.
Okay.
Most people, when they do it, they get there at like 5 a.m.
Why?
Because the sun's not up. And I mean, our viewers don't know this, but Virginia's been pretty hot the past
it's been 100 degrees for seemingly no reason. Yeah.
Yeah. So I got there. We got there at 12, like noon.
Okay.
And the height of the sun felt like 110 degrees outside.
Okay.
And we're getting in the car around like 10. It's like a 2-hour drive to get there. And my buddy's with me from work, and I say the magic words when we get in the car.
Uh-huh.
I say, I need some energy. Let's go to McDonald's. I'm getting 8 hash browns. Do you want any?
Those are the magic words? 8 hash browns?
I got 8 hash browns. Because in my mind, I'm like, I need energy.
Okay, that's true. Well, I guess they are carbohydrate. Bro, my mind is blown. I consider myself someone who enjoys hash browns, and that sounds like an ordeal. 8 hash browns? That's obsessive, my guy.
So I don't like hash browns. I like McDonald's hash browns. Those are the only ones I'll eat.
It's because they're cooked in beef tallow.
That's exactly it.
Yeah. What are you washing them down with? Water or Bev?
Water. Because I don't drink soda.
8 hash browns. Did it help? Were you energized?
No, it weighed me down the entire day. I remember I was 2 miles in and hating my life.
And 2 miles into a 10-mile hike, a 20-mile hike, right? Back and forth, or is it 5?
No, it's a circle.
Okay. Oh, okay.
So basically, let me just break it down. The bad part of this hike is only about like 4.2 miles.
Okay.
So basically, you go 3 miles of just uphill walking, and then you get to the rocky part where you have to kind of scale some rocks and just basically drag yourself up the last mile, and it gets progressively worse.
Right. And
I was straight up ready to pass out because I get 3 miles in and I'm out of water. My buddy from work brought 2 Deer Park bottles and nothing else. We very, very underestimated this hike. The whole time we're dying of heat because it's 110 outside. And we get to the top and we just didn't enjoy any of it. And I don't know if I took some pictures. I don't know if we can link that Instagram that I started just to show some hiking pics.
Do you know what the slash is?
I can get you after the link in the description if people want to see. It was a pretty nice view, but we enjoyed it for maybe 10 minutes.
Right.
And then we were the way back is easy. It was 6 miles of just slight downhill. It was actually kind of enjoyable.
Right.
But towards the end, because I wasn't done making bad decisions this day.
No, of course not.
I was out of water, and at the end, there's a stream. And
Okay.
and there's this random dude who was behind us the whole time, who was like kind of going our pace. We were like leapfrogging him all day. We're like, we'd go for a little bit, we'd rest, and they'd start going and pass us, and then we'd pass them when they were resting, you know?
Yeah, like when you're playing mini golf and somebody else is also on your pace.
Yeah, it's the worst. But these guys were cool. But I look at him and I'm like, you think it's safe to drink? And he says, hell yeah. And he starts drinking the water in this stream.
Man.
So I fill up my hydro flask and just chug it.
Right.
Because, you know, my bad decisions are endless and eternal.
Yeah, of course.
And so my buddy's looking at me like, you shouldn't have done that. And I'm like, dude, it's fine. It smells fine. It looks fine. We're good.
It's water. Yeah, what are you going to do?
Water's water.
Exactly.
So then we finally get down to the mountain and like, I told my buddy, like, you drive my car to the gas station. We'll get some Gatorades and I'll drive the rest of the way home.
Okay.
Because I don't usually let people drive my car because it's my car.
Yeah, it's a pretty fancy thing you got there. It's like a souped up Miata.
Yeah. I'm known for my souped up Miata.
Yeah, souped up Miata Alex. That's what they call you.
Yeah. But we get it, first of all, I'm suddenly the navigator because there's no reception because this old rag is in Syria, Virginia. I just love saying that because it sounds so weird.
Right.
And I was just looking at my phone and I'm navigating through the back roads, and we get like, I want to say 7 miles down the road, and I tell my buddy, hey, just pull in this parking lot real quick. I don't say why, and
Okay.
he's like, why are we switching? I'm like, yeah, we're switching. And I get out and I stumble 10 feet from the car and I just vomit everywhere.
Due to the stream water or due to the hash browns? Because I feel like it's 50-50 at this point.
We'll never know.
Bruh. I'm surprised you were able to keep it in for the entirety of the 10-mile walk.
Yeah, so was I.
That's pretty wild. I mean, this seems like such a health nut sort of thing to do, to go on a 10-mile hike in this sort of heat, and you've just done it the way that a completely nutrition ignorant fat guy would do it. Just load up on McDonald's and just drink the first source of water that you bump into.
It's really a culmination of all my life phases.
Yeah. Would you do it again more preparedly, or is it?
I'd have to be more prepared and actually like wake up early and bring
Not
a
do it
lot
in the
more
heat?
water.
Do you think are
More of
hikes
more of a fall hike, to be honest.
would a hike be more difficult in like burning hot 90, 100 degree temperature, or would it be more difficult in like basically freezing?
It's pretty easy and basically freezing
Really?
because you can just wear more layers and you're kind of warm yourself up walking.
I guess that makes sense. Yeah.
I was gonna ask you if you wanted to go hike with us on Old Rag because you had said you wanted to go sometime, and I was like, hey, I could bring him, but then I was like, it's probably a hard one.
That seems like a Black Diamond sort of hike to go on. Yeah, I was thinking more like we try and do an extra lap around the park I normally go around.
Yeah.
That's like a starter thing. I mean, the idea of hiking seems pretty cool, but I guess in my head, I'm always more thinking of it like camping, where it's like if we go on a hike and I don't see like a single like wolf or anything, I'm going to consider it a bit of a waste of time.
Oh, I glazed over that, but we actually had to stop for a little bit because there was a bear on the trail.
Ooh, okay, that does sound cool then.
There was a mom grizzly with her cub.
That's not something you want to be anywhere close to, right?
No, the person we were leapfrogging stopped us, and they're like, "Yo, there's a bear."
There's a bit of a bear up the track there, mate. You might want to give it a bit of a rest.
So we socially distance away from that bear.
It's a bear, isn't it? I'm just working on all my voices today.
It was unbearable.
How do I leave the Discord call? Have you seen this Joe Rogan thing that's going on?
Yes.
So there's this clip of Joe Rogan that has taken the internet by storm because he's talking about gaming culture, and he gives a little bit more context in the full interview, but the clip that's going viral is effectively him saying that the like cold thing that he says is gaming is a waste of time, period. And then in this interview that he has with Joe DeSena, his guest on this episode, is Joe DeSena talks about his kid playing video games, and I don't know if he was trying to do it as a career or was just making a passing comment that, you know, Dad, like, I can play video games. It's fine. Like, people make money off of this. It's not the complete, you know, otaku thing that it was back in the day. And he was like, yeah, but the chance of that is so low. And Joe sort of like kind of agrees with them. And then it also becomes this whole conversation of like the chance of making a living doing video games, even though mainly what Joe says here is that gaming is a waste of time. I've got the clip pulled up here. If you give me a second, I'll play the most relevant bit. It's only about 30 seconds. I'm going to keep the volume relatively high so it's easy to hear on the audio end. But here's the clip. So that comparison infuriates me.
Yeah.
Because it just doesn't hold water. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to pretend like I know anything about martial arts, but first of all,
he makes it sound really easy to do martial arts.
You're not taking Brazilian jiu-jitsu for 3 years and being competitively viable. You're not.
I like how you phrased it that way.
Absolutely not. In a competition setting, 3 years of weekly classes, you're going to get choked out immediately against somebody who's been training for 10, 15 years, the way that they would in competitions. Yeah. And the other mentality of 3 years of Brazilian jiu-jitsu being good enough for you to be able to start a school is obscene. You're not going to get 100 people to sign up to learn from a dude who's been taking weekly classes for 3 years. You're not. You're going to be taught by like somebody who either has won numerous tournaments in his life or has taught students who have gone on to win numerous tournaments in their life. Black belts minimum. If you're going to be paying, $160 a month to attend or have your kids attend to learn Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
Right. It's a tough thing for me to say. I apologize. But it's so dumb. But the other end of that, aside from the fact that if you remove the idea of making a school to teach other people jiu-jitsu, right? There's no way in hell you're making money from jiu-jitsu. You're not.
Yeah.
Take all the classes that you want. If you win a jiu-jitsu tournament, which is taking place over the course of several days, you're only making money if you win or if you're in the top 3 places. The grand prize could be $10,000, $25,000, $30,000. So this means you are winning first place in like 3 or 4 tournaments in a year in order for you to make like 60, 70K a year.
Yeah.
Right? You're not going to do that. There aren't.
I feel like that's not even my problem with the clip, though. I feel like
the other thing I want to mention is well, what's your problem with the clip?
It's like I feel like people need an outlet sometimes, or like a hobby, and that you just don't have to expect making money from it. It just needs to be something that you enjoy.
Exactly. His comparison to jiu-jitsu, he does not put jiu-jitsu on a higher pedestal because it makes you fit or healthy or helps you find inner peace or teaches you discipline. He specifically says it because it has a higher likelihood, in his mind, in his opinion, to make you more money. He specifically ties doing jiu-jitsu to starting a small business, to making a living, to owning a Mercedes. And because of those financial benefits, he believes that it's a better use of your time. which is just false. The way that you use your time should never be valued based on whether or not it brings you monetary gain. That's just not how it works. Otherwise, anything that you do could otherwise be spent working, could otherwise be spent trying to make more money. And that's just not the sort of mindset that you need to have, especially if you're going to do something that requires the patience of starting a small business. And especially if you're going to be a human who, you can't just do everything that's going to be the most profitable thing for you every single hour of the day. You have to have something to decompress. You have to have something to relax with. Now, anybody who follows Joe Rogan or has even looked into this a little bit will know that Joe Rogan actually did suffer from being very addicted to video games. In his youth, he originally built his first PC or bought a relatively expensive PC to be able to play Quake with him and his buddies, and he spent hours and hours and hours on that. And I could see how he would look back on that time in his life and consider it a waste of time because it didn't end up being anything for him, which again should not. The fact that it didn't end up making him money and he didn't become a Quake pro shouldn't immediately make that time in his life be considered a waste of time, basically. But I think he would have a completely different outlook on this if he did end up going pro. Yeah, if he ended up being a Quake pro, if he ended up making or becoming a Twitch streamer or making Quake content, instead of being a UFC commentator, he became a commentator on newer video games or something, I think he'd have a completely different outlook on this. There's a bit more of this clip where Joe DeSena, I think it's right after this bit, so I'm going to play this next bit. So listen to what he talks on here. And then immediately goes back to the mindset that you should have if you're passionate about something.
He's all over the place.
No way in hell do you take that same mentality, apply it to stand-up comedy. You can't make money opening a school for stand-up comedy if you don't end up getting famous. The only way you're going to make money doing stand-up comedy, aside from making $50 to $100 a show...
Wait. You just had a great show idea.
Did I?
School where you teach comedy.
Ooh, new anime idea? We'll add that. We'll add that to the 30 other ideas we've got. We'll make them happen one day.
Okay.
But stand-up comedy is even worse. Or stand-up comedy is more akin to playing video games than jiu-jitsu is. I would argue that it's even more malicious in the way that it utilizes your time. Because for the most part, you're almost... I don't know if I want to say this as concretely as I'm going to, but you're not doing stand-up comedy for fun. You're not doing stand-up comedy as an outlet. You know, you have to take painful moments in your life, find the comedic relatability into it, and then have the writing knowledge and the comedic timing to put that into a funny little tidbit and then get on stage and perform that for strangers to judge you on. That's not something you do at home with your friends for fun the way that you do with video games. And the end goal for that is never just, oh, it's a good exercise in public speaking. No, you want to be in movies. You want to be a stand-up comedian. You want to have a Netflix special. You want to be on TV. That's true for almost any stand-up comedian, right?
Yeah.
It's not...
You're right there.
Yeah, like you're not doing it casually, you know, on your days off from work with your buddies. Like that's a very solo, dedicated endeavor in order to try and break into mainstream fame, right? So if you take a look at the same way in video games, these guys here are talking about their kids mentioning. I don't know if they're saying the way that Joe DeSena here says his son goes, "Oh, Dad, you know, people make millions of dollars from this." He doesn't follow it up with, "My kid wants to be a famous Twitch streamer." You know, he says it as if he's just telling his kid to stop playing video games, and his kid retorts with this, with, "Dad, come on, like this isn't like a complete waste of time. Like sometimes people get real good and they make a living off of it. Like get off my back," sort of thing. Yeah. And it turns into this discussion of, you know, professional gaming is a real thing, and it feels like it's two halves of, you know, completely opposite sides of the argument. If you're going to accept that being a competitive gamer is a real thing that can happen, right? you can't say video games are a complete waste of time. I understand the sentiment of the reasonable thing that I think both sides can sort of agree to here is that there's definitely a large number of people who are spending a lot of time playing video games, working on streaming their video games, working on making videos for video games with the sole intention of trying to become famous or trying to become rich or trying to make money off of it, trying to make a living off of it. And it's just not going to work out for 99% of them. That's just fact, right?
Yeah.
It's an oversaturated market. There's going to be very few people compared to the number of people who are trying to become famous that end up actually making a living doing any sort of online video.
Yeah, but there's different ways. Like, because like for like if you're thinking of like in terms of sports, the only way for you to get like successful with sports is to be good at sports. But video games is a little different.
To be like, the pinnacle of good at sports, you basically have to go semi-pro in order to start getting paid.
Yeah, but like with video games, there's different avenues. You could be really good at something and have a stream and not be that entertaining, because like that's how I think of Shroud, where he's just so good at a game, but like I don't find him entertaining as a person.
Not then, like personality wise.
Personality wise.
It's his skill in the game that makes him entertaining to watch. Yeah, that's definitely
like
Shroud.
You get the flip side where it's like Jericho, where he's awful at Counter-Strike, but it's the most entertaining thing to watch.
Exactly. And that
where like you don't even have to be the best and you're still gonna make a living off of it.
Exactly. And yeah, exactly. And video games have so many, like if the thing that you want to do is to play video games, like there will become a point where you are the most knowledgeable person in a number of different avenues. Not like if you're very good at Counter-Strike, you're eventually going to get very good at understanding what makes a good map. Yeah. And if you become that person who talks about that online, like you could work in video game development. You could critique video games. You could review video games. You could play the newest video games. You could have enough clout online that you become the dude whose tweet complaining about a champion gets to a developer, and because of that, they make the game better. You know, you can have an impact on gaming culture in that way. So it's definitely not the thing that you want to avoid going to college and pursue that as a career without any other preparation. Yeah. But it's definitely the most probable now that you can make a career doing some sort of online video gaming than you ever could when Joe Rogan was a kid. 100%. Yeah. Right.
I just feel like there's so many reasons to like play video games. Like everyone has their own reason why they play. Like for me, the reason I play Counter-Strike is because like I found it at like the perfect time when I had like stopped playing sports. Right. And like the competitive nature of it, like was what I wanted. Right. Like that feeling of like intense moments and stuff was like how I filled the void of soccer once I stopped playing after high school. And it was like, this is what I need. This fills that little gap.
Yeah. And there's definitely people who like, if you don't play sports and your job isn't like a car salesman or something, you're never going to get the thrill of like working hard for like a winning payoff, that you are better than this other person at this craft outside of video games, right? You're never going to have this very tactical, advantage of beating somebody on your terms at this sport if you're not physically capable of doing it. But yeah. Video games, like for the most part, almost all sports are going to be physical in one way or another. The exceptions, I would say, would be something like maybe bowling or golf, where it's way more technique. I was
straight up thinking bowling.
Yeah, it's way more technique than it is physical capabilities. But with the video games, it's like there is sort of an avenue for everything. Like if you want to if you're young and you've got that cat-like reflex, that hand-eye coordination to be Shroud, then they have FPSs for it. If you're much more tactical about things, you can play things like, real-time strategy games. You can play League of Legends. You can play StarCraft. You can play card games where it's a whole lot of preparation and the actual play comes into very slow, meticulous analyzation of what your opponent's doing, like chess, basically. Yeah. I think Joe Rogan also does one other thing poorly here that I don't necessarily think is his mistake. I think his guest Joe DeSena here sort of muddies the waters a bit. But Joe Rogan says that video games are a waste of time For a lot of people, I think he doesn't say it in this clip, but it is what he means. For a lot of people, video games are a waste of time, in that you could take the 100 hours that you dump into Persona 4 Golden, for instance, and if you put that into learning how to play the cello, well, now you know how to play the cello. Versus,
is anyone streaming Persona 4 Golden?
Chill. You know how to play the cello versus I beat that video game, which is like a tangible thing that you can do now with that extra 100 hours that you've taken.
Yeah, that's a funny example because I stopped playing the cello and started playing video games in 5th grade.
Or the opposite, exactly. And then Joe DeSena, his guest's point is that video games are, or I guess also kind of Joe Rogan's point is that video games are a waste of time unless it becomes your career, which I would argue twofold is, so is there an example of somebody who video games is their career, but it's still a waste of time for them?
If it's your if it's you're saying if it's someone's career, are they still wasting their time playing video games?
Yeah. So the person who comes to mind for me is like Wings of Redemption.
I don't know who that is. You're gonna have to fill me in.
What Frederick Knudsen did a down the rabbit hole on him. I think I linked it to you. Wings of Redemption was an old Call of Duty streamer who was always known for sort of maybe exposing too much of his life online. He's one of those people.
Okay.
Talked about like, you know, how much money he was making, and then now he's mostly a meme. People mostly watch that dude to watch him get triggered at getting his ass kicked on video games, and people donating old jokes and memes that piss him off just to get a reaction out of him. And he's like constantly begging for subs and donations and saying there's no point to streaming today. I've only made like $30. You know, playing video games is his life, is his job. That is what pays the bills. But because he didn't take the time to garner a proper audience or get good enough at the video games that he plays, you know, it's sort of turned on his head where now it's still kind of feels like a waste for him to be doing what he's doing. Because it, you know, if you're not making enough to pay rent, if you had taken that same 5 years to play video games and do something else, yeah, video games are currently your livelihood, but you might have been better off mentally to just be in construction or something. You know what I mean? I know Wings of Redemption specifically had like an injury and couldn't do it anymore. But,
yeah,
you know, 5 years down the road, like you'd probably be making the same amount of money. Your money's a little bit more secure. You don't need to be begging your streamers to be donating to you or your viewers to be donating to you. And it's so much less mental impact. I mean, this kid's always on the verge of like breaking a controller or threatening to cut off the stream because he's just sick of everybody trolling in his games once they realize that it's him, and mock donations just bringing up old jokes and memes of, you know, stuff he used to say that he doesn't like anymore.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like if you enjoy doing it, it can't be considered a waste of time.
I think that's my point as well. Yeah. Is even if it is your job, if you're not enjoying it, then that makes it a waste of time. And then as a result, if it isn't your job, but you are enjoying it, then it's a good use of your time. That's how it is. I would say that nobody would argue that taking a trip to the beach or, you know, relaxing in your backyard, spending a day with your kids, maybe not spending a day with your kids, taking a vacation. Nobody would tell you that any of that is productive. They would never say it's productive. You're never going to get so good at taking vacations that you're going to open a school to teach people how to take vacations. You know what I mean? But on the same note, if you ask anybody, are vacations necessary? They'd say yes. At least a couple times a year. You absolutely do need to take a break, take a vacation, decompress in whatever way you deem fit. And that might be a 2-week vacation with the family once a year to Disneyland to get away from your day job. It might be 4 hours of gaming at the end of your 8-hour shift to decompress after your day job is sort of the way that I look at it.
Which is probably the correct way to look at it.
I feel like it's the correct way to look at it. I mean, so what becomes the big detriment to if somebody wanted to pursue gaming as a career in this day and age? So let's say someone graduates from high school and they decide to not go to college because they want to pursue becoming a Twitch streamer. If they spent 4 years playing video games, streaming 10 hours a day, I would argue at the end of 4 years, you'd probably at least have 10, 15 people watching you minimum if you're playing the same sorts of stuff and eventually have a bit of a personality that people come to love, you know, or get familiar with at least.
Yeah, I mean, it probably isn't something you should jump head first into, just like set up a schedule around what your life is.
Yeah.
And try to like build it from there. And if like you hit a break, it's up to you to take it, but don't jump in head first straight away without any like safety net. That's my view.
Yeah.
I'm not the most risk-taking person.
I think the actual way that I would advise someone to go about making what I would say a career making online content, because for the most part, I wouldn't recommend just being a Twitch streamer. You got to be an online personality if you want to make it work. You can't just play a video game 8 hours a day. Like you got to also be making YouTube videos on Twitch highlights and giving little tutorials on what you've learned in the game and become a source of like value for somebody who's going to watch your stuff. But I guess my point is the alternative to that, if somebody wants to play video games for 8 hours a day, while they could take 8 hours of classes on how to, mine Bitcoin and how to invest that into real estate and become a millionaire at 28, it doesn't mean they're gonna do it.
Yeah.
If you just take video games away from somebody, that 40 hours a week that they spend doesn't immediately get dumped into productivity. It doesn't just become an extra $300. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, a silly way to look at it. There have been a number of people on Twitter, big Twitch streamers, Dr. Lupo, Ninja, and a few others, who have gone on to say, gaming has changed my life. I've made all this money. I support my parents, blah, 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 this and that. They're the exception to the rule. So I feel like they don't really have a big place to speak on. They can say that gaming is not a complete waste because look at me. Yeah. That's fair. But I think Joe Rogan...
It's kind of unfair to Joe.
I think Joe Rogan is specifically talking about the people who are playing video games who will never have a chance of making money from it. And yeah, I think the conversation very much becomes, is playing video games unhealthy inherently?
I imagine now like a school counselor like telling a kid in high school, like, you're the backup quarterback, you're not going to make it in the NFL, you need to start thinking about like what college you want to go to. And like freaking like Peyton Manning busting in the door like, hey, football changed my life.
Yeah, exactly. Like Bo Burnham has a very interesting clip where he's on, I think it's the Tonight Show, and the host asks him, what would you say to someone who wanted to become a stand-up comedian? And he looks dead at the camera and he goes, quit. He was like, stop. He was like, I am the top 1% of people who had a shot at this, and even I got lucky to make it here. You know what I mean? Like, me telling you to pursue stand-up comedy because I made it is like someone who won the lottery telling you to liquidate your assets and just spend everything you can on tickets. Like, it doesn't mean anything coming from me.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think that's the biggest issue with this clip. I think it's two different thoughts. Is playing video games inherently a waste of time? And what's the likelihood that video games is going to become your career? And does that give it an intrinsic value over something that's going to more likely make you more money? And I think my answers respectively become, if you're trying to make money from video games, you better also be patient at the very least. You better have 3-4 years ahead of you that you're going to be okay with. It's going to take that long to make it. And video games are more than the money that they bring to you, just like anything else. You don't buy a pet because it's going to make you money. You don't buy a car because it's going to make you money. If anything, they're going to cost you a bunch of money, but it's worth it because they're convenient. They benefit the overall quality of your life. And I feel like as long as life is and how much time you got to spend, being with you, like if we get sick of each other, we can just stop doing the podcast. You know what I mean? But if you can't deal with who you are by yourself, like play some video games, watch some movies, like whatever's going to keep you happy, like you got to stay in that body for a while, bro. So if it's going to put a smile on your face, do it. For real. Just any opportunity that you get, like keep yourself out of a rut. And if that means playing video games, if that means binging through, whatever TV show you got to do, like if that's what's getting you out of bed on time, going to work, loving the people in your life and what have you. And I feel like 9 times out of 10, that's what it is for most people. Like, don't take stupid takes online to make you feel bad about it.
Yeah.
We got another bit of gaming news. Ninja, I've got the tweet pulled up here. A tweet from @discussingfilm. This is a a couple articles have been made on this, but basically Ninja is looking to enter the entertainment industry of Hollywood. Quote from Ninja: movies, voice acting, cartoons, I'm looking at everything. There have been a couple articles that I've seen, but this is the one that has the quote from Ninja. But basically, Ninja is looking to make a transition from online personality, gaming personality, to becoming a mainstream Hollywood actor, voice actor. He says cartoons. I don't know if he means animator or voice acting for cartoons. And
I'm going to guess animated.
This has been, I want to say, pretty universally looked down upon, and it brings up a bit of a discussion with me specifically, because this is actually the sort of move that I would like to make. I would like to be a voice actor and work on animation.
Are you going to be the next Nolan North?
What?
Are you going to be the next Nolan North?
Why do you say things as if I'm going to know who that is?
He's in every game you play.
Is he?
Yeah.
Oh, is he a voice actor?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, voice acting. I mean, I don't...
And, like, look at me. I guarantee you he's in Persona 4 Gold. I guarantee it.
As an English voice actor?
Yeah.
What is his name?
Nolan North.
Nolan North.
Please don't tell me I got the name wrong.
Persona 4. He voices... IMDb, he's not there. Troy Baker and Nolan do sound alike.
Damn. Got me there.
Oh, he did Vincent and Catherine, though. Another Atlas game that I fell in love with.
I knew he was in that one because he went on Funhouse and played it with them.
He played Catherine with them? Oh, yeah. Bro, that game's incredible.
I don't think he had ever played it before. I think he just did the voice acting and just, like, pieced.
That's fair, because, yeah. This is interesting for me because I would like to think about how to do this properly. How to do this in a way that doesn't garner backlash from, like, the community that I have online. You know what I mean? I think the biggest issue here is that Ninja's never done anything in terms of acting, voice acting, or cartoons. Mm-hmm. You know, none of what he's done to get to where he is now has been anything to say that he wants to do voice acting because he thinks, you know, being able to do different voices and be a part of digital media is like a nice legacy to leave. Anything like that. It on the surface feels like he's got some online notoriety and fame and clout, and he wants to turn that into mainstream notoriety, fame, and clout because it's going to make him more money.
Wasn't New Year's Eve enough for him?
Yeah, you'd think he'd learn, but no. What's your take on this?
I feel like that's such like a I mean, he's not gonna take a career advice from me, but like, I don't know, I feel like it's such like a dick move to like walk in the industry and just announce I'm gonna try to do this now instead of like doing it in the background and like just surprising people with it.
What do you think would be the correct way to go about this? Let's say you build up your audience. I'm speaking from me, by the way. So let's say
let's say he has an agent, and let's say you'll have an agent at this point. Okay. Your agent puts it out there to different companies that you're looking to do this sort of stuff, and then like, I feel like he's just putting it out there publicly just for people to, just to like say like, hey, come to me,
right?
Instead of like, you know, actually like pursuing a job like a normal person.
They did have that movie with Ryan Reynolds about gaming. Ryan Reynolds gaming movie. Free Guy, which features Ryan Reynolds, and I believe the premise is that he's a main character in a video game world. And in the game, is this a picture? In the game, or in the movie, they feature a couple prominent online game people, including Pokimane and gaming movie streamers. Is this going to give me the right results? Featuring Ninja and Pokimane and Jacksepticeye. They all ended up in this blockbuster movie with Ryan Reynolds, which is cool.
Yeah.
It's gaming themed. These people have the clout online to be able to do it. So maybe Ninja enjoyed his time in that, or Ninja wants to put it out that he'd be open to do more sort of like cameo features like this. I wonder if he did mean, you know, if he could do a full-on acting career and become the main character in the next let's say the equivalent of like a Harry Potter franchise comes out and they want to consider Ninja. I wonder if he means doing proper stuff like that.
I feel like he missed his chance being in Ready Player One.
Ah, if only. But there will be more stuff coming out, so maybe something like this is, I think the biggest sort of downside to it is that he doesn't have any sort of acting experience. I feel like if you wanted to make this sort of, let's say, bold move to try and break into Hollywood, you would at the very least, I would say, give respect to the people who are trying to become actors and work minimum wage jobs just to be able to live in LA with the hopes of making enough small time acting gigs to build up a resume to get something big, rather than just, dude, look at how many subs I have, look at how often I'm in the news online, clearly you want me in the next Transformers film, right?
Yeah.
Is what it feels like.
Yeah. Okay, so, I got distracted, but do you know what Ryan Reynolds' current side venture is? It's just so weird to me.
No, what?
He started a phone service, like a competitor to like Verizon and Sprint.
Really?
Yeah, like he just straight up started a phone company.
I don't know how you would compete with big phone companies.
He just started one. He was on I saw him on Colbert talking about it.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know how you do it. I don't know how he got into this, but yeah, he's pimping it.
That's pretty wild. I mean, stuff like that's just like a business venture for cash, I'm assuming.
Yeah, probably. But like someone out there saying like, "Yo, I got my phone from Deadpool."
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, movies are wild.
All right, but back to this. Yeah, I feel like what you were saying was the better idea, where you just like instead of just like
so what do you think is the
cloud around?
What do you think is the right way to go about this? So
I
like if I looked in the future, Ninja's 28, right?
I think. I mean, I couldn't even pick this guy out of a crowd straight up. If his hair wasn't blue,
I probably could, but I remember watching him back when he was a Halo pro. So this dude is 3 years older than me. So let's say 30. I'm fine with 30. I turned 26 this year. 4 years from now, you see the same headline. SumitoMedia is looking to enter the entertainment industry of Hollywood. Movies, voice acting, cartoons. I'm looking at everything. And you look at that headline and you go, good for him. Good. I want that for this dude.
Where are my damn royalties?
Where are my damn royalties? How would I get to that point? What would I need to do differently to what Ninja's done to garner that sort of emotion out of people seeing my name?
Step one, be really good at Halo.
Right. Obviously, I have to become a pro in Halo Reach 3. Yeah.
Step two, wait for a new first-person shooter that's kind of cartoony to come out and take the world by storm.
Right. So get really, really good at Valorant 6.
Mm-hmm. And then Drake. Drake's a big part of this.
Did you see that Logic?
Live stream?
That's my question. Yeah. So he announced the launch of his final album.
I don't know if you noticed, I'm a huge Logic fan.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he announced his retirement with the launch of his most recent album, and sort of within the same 2 weeks did his first Twitch stream.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, I mean, as somebody who's pursuing a career in online content creation, I'm trying to be an influencer mom. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It makes me feel good to see mainstream.
Do you know why it's his last album?
Because he's biracial.
He just had his son.
Sure.
And with like a lot of his music and stuff, his parents were like really bad based off of anything he raps about.
Right.
Like his mom was kind of racist to him, and his dad was like not there. So I think his
mom was the one that was
white,
right? Yeah.
Yeah. But like his viewpoint was like he doesn't want to be away from his son or like not there as a dad in the recording studio.
Yeah.
Like he's done enough where he can just walk away and just be a dad.
Right.
And so I think like Twitch is something he can do like on the side because he like
from home. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean he's always been a gamer and stuff. If you watch like his Instagram feed and stuff where like he'd just be playing on the Oculus Rift or something.
Yeah.
And one of the first songs that got me into him was he has a song called Super Mario World,
Right.
where he uses like the Mario beat, and it just I fuck with Logic.
Yeah, Logic's a good dude. He's also from our area. He's from Southern Maryland.
Yeah, dude.
He said DMV in a number of his songs, I think.
He has a song called Gang Related, and there's a news report in that they use a clip from, and it's from one of our local news reporters.
Ha! Good on you, Logic. Much better representation of our area than Wale ever was, I'll tell you that.
Well, Logic and the guys who help him with his music are all from the DMV.
Good. Oh, hey, if we could maybe get him on the podcast, because if he's going to settle down, he'd probably settle down here, right? Or is he living in LA with his kid?
He's living in LA.
Ugh.
Hit up Six, though. Maybe Six is around.
How big would this podcast need to get for you to move out to LA with me? Quit your job, do this full time. Would that even be something that would enter your mind?
It would have to get so damn big.
I mean, if it paid as much as your current job does, guaranteed. Like there's no doubt in the world that it's going to disappear tomorrow. It pays you as much as your current job does. Would you rather be doing this podcast and maybe?
I don't want to be
streaming?
lame. What's the cost of living in LA like compared to? Because our cost of living here
don't worry
sucks.
don't worry about the LA part so much. Let's just say here you become full time. You know, we do the podcast twice a week, and then we also do some other stuff. And you just basically do like online social media stuff. Maybe you have a Twitch stream, maybe make some YouTube videos, whatever. But essentially, you work under the SumitoMedia umbrella to bring some of my ideas to life in a way. But it pays you what your current job does. Would you rather do your current job, or do you have any interest in being an online person? Basically, is my question. If it was guaranteed to be financially viable,
it's such a hard decision because like I genuinely like what I do so much. But if the money was the same, I'd probably just switch over.
I mean, if the money was the same, would you not rather want to be playing video games and doing podcasts and watching movies and reviewing movies or whatever, you know, have a YouTube channel doing whatever your hobby is?
I definitely would, but I just don't feel confident enough in my own ability to stick with it.
Sure. That's fair.
I feel like movies to me, like I would love to like, that's like my dream job is reviewing movies. But
you know what's funny is the next thing on my bulletin board is Alex's dream movie. We've talked about movies quite a few times here. One of your favorite channels on YouTube is Red Letter Media. Somebody just commented on my channel earlier today on our last podcast from not too long ago, maybe 2 or 3. It was the one that we did on our recommendation.
Okay.
Doc, who has been subscribed for 2 months. Thank you, Alex, for introducing me to Red Letter Media. Seriously. That dude had never seen Red Letter Media before. He got introduced to that channel
it's
through
eye-opening.
you talking about it on the Shpodcast.
That makes me really happy.
That's a good feeling, right?
Yeah, I love showing people Red Letter Media because it's genuinely like I love Best of the Worst, but even their movie reviews, I tend to agree with them more than I don't.
Right.
Not to say that I let them decide if I see a movie or not, but I tend to have the same opinion afterwards as them.
Does the idea of doing Alex Letter Media not like excite you? Like
I wouldn't like they work in the industry, they went to school for this stuff and they studied this stuff. I don't want to put myself on the same level as them.
How old are you? You're not 60. That's
No.
far from out of range of something you could very easily do in your life.
I just don't want to. I would never hold my opinion at the same level as theirs because I just feel like they have such like a background of information, and I'm just
That's
like
true.
like what I was saying was like to me like I would love to review movies and all that, but like to me movies are just such something I just enjoy doing on my own time. I'm sorry, Joe Rogan.
You'd be worried about making it into your job, you mean?
I don't know. It's like for me it'd feel weird taking something that's an outlet and making it the focal point of my livelihood. You know what I mean?
I don't, because that's
I feel
effectively
like
what I have to do in order to pursue YouTube
I'm not
the way
I'm
that
not
I am.
I'm not trying to diss you. I'm just saying like
No, I think it's
like
interesting
taking
because
something that's enjoyable to me and something that I do in leisure time to de-stress
I've definitely
and
heard
then put that kind of pressure on it.
I've definitely heard that mindset prior, more hypothetically, where people will talk about, you know, I used to do YouTube for fun and then it became a job and then it became more stressful because I couldn't just put out whatever videos on nails or beauty or vlogging. It's not like I have to do it in this way and I have to make an effort to get people to click on it and get people to watch it the whole way through because it's literally will or will not pay my rent depending on whether or not I do this correctly, and it adds a ton of stress. But I've always heard that mentality either through somebody who's already had a YouTube channel and has passed that phase, and it's always become, I used to take it seriously and try to max everything that I did, maximize the number of clicks, do the best thumbnail, blah, blah, blah. And they always come back around to, it's just become the best medium place for me to treat it like I did when it was my hobby and have fun with it. And the fact that I'm enjoying it and having fun with it is what will pass through the video. And that's what people care about seeing. So it ends up, working out in the end, basically.
I was going to say that I do tend to gravitate towards channels where it doesn't seem like they're trying to like work the system and stuff. Like they don't necessarily do like the crazy titles or like the crazy thumbnails, or like in the video, they're not like super like it could be like work on any medium almost. Cause like Red Letter Media could be a TV show for all they care. Like they could just be there. They're there to have fun, and they're not gonna, because like they've said a few times, like Best of the Worst came from, they would just every Friday night get together and just watch bad movies or something like that.
Right.
And then they said one time, like, hey, what if we just recorded it? Like, this is good content.
Right. I mean, yeah. I think that, I mean, yeah. I think you're probably the first person that I've met that's been around my age, which I always thought was like the great divider. Or like somebody in their 30s or 40s, maybe the premise of trying to become an actor, let's say. Like everybody always wants to be in movies, more or less, right? Or that's a very common like dream job, I guess, would be to be in movies. It's always like completely against their... there's no real chance that it's going to happen. They wouldn't leave their job. They have a kid, or they're comfortable with what they're doing, or they feel like they're too old to pursue something like that. But, if I went to anybody who ever wanted to be in movies, however old they were, if I was like, hey, if I can guarantee that you'd be in movies and you'd make the money that you would need to be able to keep a roof above your heads, why wouldn't you take that? I feel like 99% of people would take that if it's even been an inkling. Right? If I can guarantee you can do some acting on TV or on movies, and it won't be stuff that's like nobody will ever want to work with you afterwards, right? Yeah. If it's going to pay for the roof that you have over your heads, take your time, get good at the craft, and then maybe one day you be in a big blockbuster once you're, really good at acting the type of person that you want to be. I feel like if you did the same thing with YouTube or Twitch, and you went to most people our ages, right?
Yeah.
Mid-20s, early 20s, and you said, hey, if you could have a YouTube video doing whatever your favorite hobby was, I feel like at the drop of a hat, they'd be like, yeah, fuck this. Like, I don't want to do this corporate grind nonsense.
There definitely was a time where I would have said, hell yeah.
What time was that for you?
Dude, in high school, dude, I would probably have told you I want to be like a streamer who plays COD Zombies. Because that was my shit back then.
Right.
Like, I was running Easter eggs, like, every day. Like, we never did, like, it took us years before we actually got good at it. Because, like, we didn't know any of the strats. We just brute force all these things, like trying to do Easter eggs mid-round, like round like 40, mid-round, trying to like get stuff done instead of just holding a zombie.
Right.
Just the complete wrong way. It probably would have been funny to watch.
Yeah. If you guys are getting lost a little bit, Call of Duty Zombies was a horde mode that you would play with up to 4 people, and you'd go up against AI-controlled zombies. What Alex is saying is every round they spawn a certain number of zombies that get progressively more difficult to kill, and you have to sort of avoid them or sort of corral them into like one big train of zombies that would always be a little bit behind you, and you'd just be constantly moving. There are certain objectives that you want to try and accomplish that will upgrade your guns or activate certain traps or open up new rooms. And the current strats when you're doing Call of Duty Zombies is after you have everything corralled, you sort of work together and you leave one zombie. Because once you're on the last zombie in the round, killing it advances to the next round. So rather than having this horde of, 500 zombies that are all running behind you, you have one zombie that you've crippled and is now moving super slowly. And now you can take all the time that you want to accomplish everything. And you didn't even know that back in high school. You didn't know to leave a crawler with the ray gun and then
not at first.
Pack a punch your guns and what have you. Yeah.
There's a one game that came out. I can't remember which one it was, but they got rid of the mechanic where if you left one alive, it would just die after a certain amount of time, and it ruined everyone's fun.
Yeah, that must be one of the later games. I remember watching Syndicate on like round 110 in Black Ops 1, I think, and he was demonstrating how much health the zombies have and why after round 60, 70, 80, the only way to kill them is to use the traps.
Or the thunder gun.
Or the thunder gun, yeah. So this dude had a pack-a-punched ray gun and a pack-a-punched LMG. And he had a crawler, right? So blew the legs off of it already. And he hit this thing with the full clip of a ray gun, 3 clips of a pack-a-punched LMG, and then did it again. Got a second LMG off the wall, pack-a-punched that, emptied all the ammo in that, and it didn't kill a single crawling zombie at level 110.
Yeah, the health gets insane after a while.
Yeah, he was like, the guns mean nothing. The only thing you can do is use the monkey bombs, which make everything run away from you, and the thunder gun, which doesn't care about health. It just knocks him down no matter what, I think, right?
It's in a certain blast radius, and it's just like an instant kill.
It's a one shot, yeah. So that, and then you just keep dragging
zombies
only
up
into the traps.
Only if you pack a punch it, because it becomes the Zeus cannon.
Right. There's like bosses and stuff in the later Call of Duty zombie games. I was watching Shift, who was a SpongeBob SquarePants speedrunner, play some Call of Duty zombies, and I'd never noticed that before. But they had straight up bosses with like they have a name tag over them, and they like draw electricity and stuff. I'd never played one of the later Call of Duty
Which one
games.
were you watching, just so I know what you're talking about?
Which game?
Which map or which version?
It was like a shipwreck with a lighthouse.
Oh, that was Call of the Dead, which is actually my favorite.
Oh, interesting.
It's because that one had the coolest wonder weapon, because each map also has like a specialized wonder weapon. Like we talked about the thunder gun, which was, I think it was just on Ascension or maybe some others. I don't know if it was the special of that one, but it's like it just shoots like a wind burst into the air in front of you.
Right.
But the pack-a-punch or the wonder weapon for Call of the Dead is called the Scavenger, and it's a sniper that shoots an explosive bullet.
Right.
But the bullets act like the monkey bomb when you pack-a-punch it, and all the zombies get attracted to it and blow up in a group.
Oh, that's so high quality. What the fuck?
It makes this dope noise when it explodes, where it sounds like some like high-pitched like metallic noise to it.
Right.
It's a great map, and it actually is a movie tie-in, because all of the characters on that map are movie actors. From
like in the lore or in real life?
In real life, they're like Danny Trejo, Sarah Gellar.
Oh,
like
that's
zombie movie actors, and the boss zombie is George Romero, the guy who made the stereotypical zombie movie where they walk slowly, and like all that stuff was his idea.
Spicy. Did they work with the dudes, or do they just have their name in there as like a this isn't enough to get sued over sort of Easter egg?
They voice acted and everything.
Oh shit! Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, they did. There's so basically, if any zombie map ends in "of the dead," it means they got like Hollywood actors to come in and do voice work, because like there's Mob of the Dead, and that game it had I can't remember the actors, but it had like mob movie actors, like I can't remember. It's like I can't remember. The guy from Goodfellas was in it, but a bunch of other like guys you'd see in mob films were in it, because the map took place in like the 1920s on Alcatraz.
Ooh, I like that. I like old mob movies too. I remember watching Goodfellas. I remember watching the first Godfather, and I was like, I get why these are really well-respected movies. Like it's such a nice air of like everything's under control. We control the city sort of thing. And while stuff does go wrong, like all the main characters for the most part like know how to handle it. It's not their first time having someone in the family killed, or someone backstab the unwritten code of the family and shit like that. I always like stuff like that.
Yeah, it's just it's an atmosphere that's so nice.
Yeah. What's your dream movie?
My dream movie. So do you mean like?
I guess both.
If I was making him.
I guess both. So what do you consider to be one of the best films of all time? Like, do you have like a top 5?
It's hard to make a top 5 off the top of my head, but if I was somehow good at making movies, I'd make movies like Quentin Tarantino. But I've seen so many people fail at trying to make a Tarantino movie from my travels of watching bad movies.
Wait, like whomst? Is there a popular example that I might know?
Oh, there's no popular example. I remember once I don't even remember the name of the movie, but it was on Red Letter Media. They were doing Best of the Worst, and it was like a college student who was making a movie. And basically, like, if you want to make when people like think Tarantino movies, I don't know if they initially think this, but everyone in the movie says the coolest thing at all times.
Right.
Like there's never a moment where someone doesn't say a cool thing. And the pitfall is that like Quentin Tarantino is really good at writing that, where like you might not even notice their first time watching, but like a college student on his first attempt trying to do it just comes across as really douchey.
Right.
And it's really hard to pull off. It's like everyone thinks they're the exception to the rule. Like, I understand movies so much, I can break the rules. But then you find out, like, no, you can't. But, like, I'd say if I was making, like, a top 10 list of serious movies, like, I'd say, like, 2 or 3 of his movies are in the top 10.
Which 2 or 3? Pulp Fiction?
Pulp Fiction would be, like, for ranking his films to me, it'd probably be 3rd.
Right.
I think the controversial thing is I'd put at number 2 Inglourious Bastards.
A lot of people like Inglourious Bastards.
I like it a lot. I like the non-linear aspect to it. But my number 1 would have to be Reservoir Dogs.
My number 1 is Reservoir Dogs. That's my favorite movie by Tarantino.
I have a Reservoir Dogs poster on my wall next to me.
So do I.
But mine is from the Vietnam release.
Why?
I got a present from someone. When I went to Vietnam, they saw it and knew I like Reservoir Dogs, so they got me the poster.
Reservoir Dogs is the first movie that I saw that had, I guess it's also sort of what I like about Parasite. It had so much foreshadowing and like symbolism, and it just real simple symbolism. Just all the characters are reflected in everything that they do. Mr. Pink not wanting to tip and making a big deal out of it, to, you know, just all that just reflects their character so well in a way that's like, the story itself is so simple.
It like, if you take like the non-linear aspect away and you just make it like a linear movie, it's
not a Tarantino movie anymore.
It's not Tarantino. But not even that. But it's a normal movie.
Yeah,
like anyone could have made that movie. But he cut it up in a way where you learn stuff as characters learn stuff instead of just knowing everything. Because like most of the time there's some sort of like, what's it called, like irony, where you as the viewer, like dramatic irony, where you as the viewer know stuff but the characters don't.
Right. So, and
but,
that's
like,
why it's funny
it
to
away.
you, because you realize what could happen now. Yeah,
but like with that movie, like you learn stuff as like any
as
other
the story
characters
tells
would
it
know.
to you. Yeah,
like you don't know more than what any one character knows.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if you've ever seen, I think it was after he won the Oscar for Inglourious Bastards and Brad Pitt gave the speech for him for the award. And like I think he made a joke saying like on stage, like, I'll now give the speech for Quentin Tarantino. It'll be in 7 parts, all non-linear.
Yeah. I mean, he does that in, I haven't seen all of his movies. I've actually only seen Reservoir Dogs, Inglourious Bastards, Django, and Pulp Fiction. I haven't seen any of the Kill Bills.
They're not like his other ones. I'm guessing you haven't seen Hateful Eight.
No, my dad's talked about that movie though. I think he likes that movie.
The people criticized it for being overly bloody, but like, I mean, westerns, you know, Django was pretty bloody, but like, I mean,
Tarantino's known for being very gory in his movies.
Yeah, Hateful Eight was probably the most gory.
Right.
I remember a few scenes. I don't want to give away stuff because that's.
Is Tarantino your favorite director?
Yeah, most definitely.
What else would be in like your top 3? So Tarantino films you hold highly. Like what other movie is up there with a Tarantino movie for you?
I mean, The Godfathers, like I've said before.
Sure.
Were like the movies that got me into movies. Where it was like The Godfather 2 probably made me like movies. Just the way they made a parallel between what's his name? Robert De Niro's character playing like an old Don trying to like become a mob boss, and then paralleling with his son coming into his own as a mob boss.
Right.
Was like just so interesting for me to watch, and it made me like see like, along with Tarantino movies, how like movies don't have to be this one-dimensional like one story at a time type affair.
Right.
And it made me see them in a new light, if that makes sense.
I feel like I have to ask you this as the person that I am. Have you seen Scott Pilgrim versus the World? And what do you think of Edgar Wright as a director?
So I haven't seen Scott Pilgrim vs. the World because I've been turned off by it by every fanboy of it. So I made a conscious choice.
Very common.
But Edgar Wright, I freaking love. I'm trying to think of what movie he recently did.
Oh, he was... Actually, I know what movie he recently did. Hold on.
Well, he was supposed to do Ant-Man, right?
Yeah, I feel like I could have told very far in advance that wasn't going to happen. Dude kind of looks like Jon Snow. I guess I've never seen a picture of Edgar Wright. He kind of looks like Jon Snow, dude.
He does. Oh, Baby Driver.
Baby Driver, that's what it is.
Holy crap, was Baby Driver good. And it's not even a typical Edgar Wright type movie.
No, it's watching Scott Pilgrim versus the World when I was like 15 or 15 or 16 is what got me into wanting to do YouTube, because his editing is so detail oriented, but it just makes so much sense. It's like so much effort goes into something that's just sort of like, yeah, why doesn't everybody do it this way? And
do you remember him? Did you ever watch Shaun of the Dead by him?
Of course, yeah.
Remember when he's flipping through the channels
and it says
warns him
what the movie's going to be about? Yeah.
Yeah, that was one. I think the thing with me, the movie that he made that got me was Hot Fuzz.
Yeah,
I freaking love Hot Fuzz. And that's a similar one where it's like everything is a little joke. Everything's a little bit of a foreshadowing.
Yeah, Edgar Wright, if you guys don't know who Edgar Wright is, he does this really brilliant thing with his more expressionist movies. I think Scott Pilgrim vs. the World is probably the best example because that movie is based on a comic. There was a lot of little details and stuff that he could put into the movie that made sense in this bright supernatural universe that they had. Shaun of the Dead, weirdly as it is, even though it takes place during a zombie apocalypse, is a lot more reality driven. So a lot of the comedy is a little bit more, back there and then back to here sort of comedy. There's a lot of scenes where they do the Bob's Burgers thing where like the world will be exploding and they'll just be having a normal conversation and disagreeing with some completely minute detail about something while the world's exploding sort of thing. And they have that a lot in Shaun of the Dead where it's like, hey, are the zombies still outside? And they'll open a window and they're like bashing in the window. They'll close it and they'll walk back onto the camera and they'll be like, yeah, the zombies are still outside. And like they just treat it like it's normal. That's a very Edgar Wright thing to do. But I don't know. That dude's just I like his editing is so easy to learn from as a YouTuber. I don't think there's a lot of filmmaking techniques that you can learn from directors and apply to like everyday YouTube stuff. But with Edgar Wright, little inside jokes here and there are just his fucking specialty. And the way that he conveys certain things, like, I don't know, you kind of have to watch some video essays on Edgar Wright movies to pick up everything that he does. But even if you haven't seen the movies, like watch a video essay watch every frame's a painting on Edgar Wright movies. I think it's how to do visual comedy right.
Just watch every frame of painting.
Just watch every one of their videos, yeah. But the way that dude, like in Shaun of the Dead, where they're trying to talk about the fact that the main character isn't drinking that day, rather than saying anything about it or him saying that he's driving home that day or whatever, they just have a scene where the dude's pouring 4 beers and then the 5th beer is a glass of water. And then everybody's just disappointed in him. And it's like, oh, he's not drinking today. Yeah. And it's not, the story doesn't tell it to you. The story gives you the context for you to figure it out yourself. And they do it in a way that's sort of fun to watch because it's a movie, like the stuff on screen should be the thing that you're interested in. And the thing that people give Edgar Wright a lot of credit for is the fact that he shows a story. He uses the visuals. And the things that I think a lot of modern day cinema gets slack for is it doesn't feel like a movie. It feels like a long string of dialogue. And you throw in a little bit of titty here and a little bit of explosion there. But for the most part, everybody talks and they say the things that you need to know that are part of the story. And then there's a resolution.
Wasn't that Tony's point in the Every Frame of Painting? I think in that exactly about Edgar Wright.
Yeah. And that
was like, it's the show, don't tell. But like, it's way easier just to tell.
Yeah, show don't tell. It's way easier to tell and utilize the entirety of the frame. If you've got two people talking to each other, the camera switching back and forth, there's stuff in front of them, there's stuff behind them, there's music that's going on. You have that entire room and every camera at your disposal to tell this as visually entertaining as you can. And Edgar Wright does that 100% of the time.
Just don't break the 180 rule.
Yeah, just don't break the 180 rule, obviously. Yeah.
We say that, but half of TikTok can't follow it.
It's honestly disappointing. At least they're going to be gone soon. They're probably not going to be gone soon.
Oh, Microsoft just bought them.
Yeah, Microsoft just bought them, which means they're probably just going to sell the company, and then it'll become U.S. owned instead of Chinese owned.
No. So what do you feel about, what's his name?
Mao Zedong? He seems okay. I'd have a beer with him.
He's dead, so that'd be a really hard one to.
I'd still have a beer with him.
I was gonna say, what do you think of Wes Anderson?
Wes Anderson, I don't know if I've seen any of his movies. I understand the whole aesthetic thing of Wes Anderson.
Wes Anderson's aesthetic is just so visually, pleasing to me.
These movies look beautiful. What's his most famous movie?
His most famous is probably The Royal Tenenbaums. The movie I'd recommend for anyone to watch to really get into him is The Grand Budapest Hotel.
I've seen Fantastic Mr. Fox.
Oh yeah,
that was Wes Anderson? Oh, of course it was. Yeah, now looking at the fucking cinema, of course it was. Grand Budapest, 2014.
That was the first one I saw, and it encapsulates. Oh, actually, that was the second one I saw. The first one I saw was Moonrise Kingdom, which I very much enjoyed, but I don't think most people would.
Right. Moonrise Kingdom 2012.
It's kind of slow and weird and artsy, and I can just say that's not for everyone.
Right. So the question becomes, if you were going to direct a movie, and
yes.
let's say you're 45 and you've had 20 years of experience doing movies. So this isn't your first movie. You have the capabilities of making something, good. You have the filmmaking technique. You have the connections to get the actors and the locations that you want. So you don't need to worry about doing something budget so that it's realistic for you to make something that doesn't suck. It's going to be good because you have the experience to make it good. What kind of movie would you make?
Yeah, I'd definitely make an Italian gangster movie.
A mob movie.
That's just my shit.
Really?
That's the initial genre movie that I was so interested in. Like you said, Goodfellas, The Godfather.
That's the legacy you would want to leave to your name. Is Alex makes very good mobster movies.
Oh my god, if that could be my legacy.
It can't. I don't know how many times I'm gonna remind you how young you are. That can totally be the thing you do.
Yeah. I mean, in my mind, I guess because I watch so many bad movies that I just see every way it could go wrong.
Yeah, that's true.
Have you seen Frozen?
Yeah. You didn't like Frozen?
No. Not the animated one.
Oh.
The one where it's a horror movie where they get stuck on a ski lift.
Oh, no. I haven't.
That's a real movie. And I just you watch the behind the scenes, and these people thought they were making the most groundbreaking, incredible thing. But they got stuck on a ski lift.
Oh man.
And they didn't want to jump down into the snow.
And that's the movie?
Oh yeah, no, it's a feature-length movie.
Jesus Christ. You keep saying feature-length as if evidently feature-length doesn't mean anything.
Well, if you want to consider it a movie, it's got to be 90 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, amongst other things, yeah.
Yeah, but you got to make 90 minutes. If you can't film 90 minutes, what did you do?
Yeah,
you made it short.
That's true, yeah. I had a bit of I came to an idea about what I think I want to do, what legacy I think I want to leave with my life, basically. And I don't think it's super far off of wanting to make movies. But recently I watched a lot of fucking anime last weekend, dude. a lot. And I watched a couple Studio Ghibli films, which I thought I'd never seen a Studio Ghibli film, but after watching Mononoke Hime, I realized I actually did watch that when I was like 12 or 13. My buddy brought over the CD and we watched it on my PlayStation 2. And
iconic.
You what?
Iconic.
You're cutting out what?
Iconic. The internet sucks, man. No, I was saying like just the PS2 as a DVD player was the best DVD player you'll ever own.
Yeah, exactly. I think what I want to do is try and open an animation studio akin to Studio Ghibli. I'm not going to say akin to Studio Ghibli, like the best animation studio that anybody could name, and everybody knows the owner's name by name, and they get tattoos of all the movies on their body. I'd love to reach that point, but reasonably speaking, right? If I make it as a YouTuber, right? And I feel like I've at least got the skill to do that much. I feel like I'm entertaining enough as a person with enough drive, and I'm young enough that in the next 5 years, I could probably get to a point where I'm making okay money from YouTube and you know, however YouTubers make money selling dead Japanese people.
Bathwater.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like it wouldn't be all that tough to start making some low budget animation. I hesitate to call it anime because it'd be Western anime because I'd be making them here. But I
mean, if it's good enough, we consider it anime. That's what we did with Avatar.
Yeah, it wouldn't be considered anime because it's not.
No, we consider Avatar anime.
Like, are you memeing? Because we're going to get yelled at. You know this.
It's honorary. It's established.
It's established that Avatar is an anime, despite it having absolutely no Japanese involvement.
It has imperialism.
That's true. You can't hate on that. I think that's what I want to do. I feel like the things that I would do on YouTube would lead into me being able to do that relatively well. I can learn to voice act. You know, I can make the money to hire animators. I can get really good at telling stories. I can watch enough films to get good at learning what is and is not well done. And at the end of the day, the reason that a lot of people don't do animation is because animation's relatively expensive.
Yeah.
And it's expensive enough to where it doesn't make a ton of sense to do an animated film because for, you know, a couple more $1 million, you could shoot it live action and then you have this much wider audience that'll come and see it. But while you can film movies relatively inexpensively, I know that for sure, right? If you have one editor and you know what you're doing, you can film movies very, very inexpensively. I think with animation, it's just like you can do so much more. Like the main expense that you're going to have when you're trying to do a budget film is going to be like locations, and like you can't make a helicopter explode, right? Even having cars can be a problem because you can't have more than 2 or 3 cars unless your buddies have cars, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like all that stuff needs to be rented out. But with animation, the difference between, you know, a daily school anime and an isekai where you're being teleported to another planet is cost the same for the most part. Animation is animation. 30 frames is 30 frames, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, you're not wrong.
It opens up all these avenues where it's like, I feel like in a perfect world, I could save up, let's say, $250,000, right, as a YouTuber. And instead of buying a Lamborghini, right, I could put it into producing a film.
A bookshelf.
A what?
A bookshelf.
Yeah, exactly.
Because knowledge.
Exactly. All I need are these fuel units. You know what I mean?
I'm sorry. Every time I hear Lamborghini, it goes right there.
I know. It does for me too, but I'm like focused on this thought that I've got.
I'm sorry.
If you put it into doing an animated, let's say a film, let's say a short whatever. A short 6-episode thing, you know?
Yeah.
15-minute runtime. And you do simple animations and you make it story driven. It doesn't need to have explosions. You can make it, you know, comedic in essence or whatever. But you just do that. And now, you know, you've brought something to life. And you're at no shortage for like stories or premises or mangas that need to be adapted. And I feel like animation studios are exactly that. They make animation, they make their money from the animation. They have to sell the thing. But I feel like if I make my money from YouTube and I've got my rent paid, you know, if that's the thing that's bringing in the money to sustain my livelihood, I could very easily dump the rest into starting a business essentially. And then it's like, if the first animation sucks and nobody watches it and nobody likes it, good. You got to do that 30, 40 times before you start making stuff that's worth watching, right? But even if it makes back half that money, it goes up on YouTube, it gets a couple 100,000 views, the ads bring in a little bit of that money back, and you just keep doing that over and over and over and over. Eventually, by the time I'm like 40, I'll be able to make something like Miyazaki. Like I'd have the resources, the talent, or at least the know-how to attract the people that have the resources and the talent to be able to make something like Mononoke Hime or Spirited Away. Eventually. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like the Killer Bean route.
Yeah. What?
Killer Bean.
Not familiar.
Look up, Google real quick, Killer Bean.
Is it something I should Google off the stream?
No, on stream.
Killer Bean. Oh, these idiots. You need to stop watching Critical's videos, dude.
No, Killer Bean, the guy worked on Transformers. And he does this in his free time.
Is that what it is? Is that why it's so good? I thought it was like a 14-year-old who's just really good with Studio Max 3D or something.
No, it's straight up like a guy who works in the industry does this because it's a passion project.
But it seems like such a meme.
He takes it seriously.
I guess I shouldn't knock it.
You don't take it seriously.
I mean, it doesn't seem like the sort of thing to be taken seriously. What do you mean? Did you watch Critical's video? The dude was very shocked by the route that the zero voice acted action.
I watched the entire movie on my own.
Did you like it?
I loved it.
Like unironically or like as a bad movie?
Both. Definitely both.
But yeah, stuff like this. Like, I feel like the thing... I'll reiterate, I watched a lot of fucking anime this last weekend, okay? Let me run through all the anime I watched last weekend, okay? In 3 days, okay? I watched 2 Studio Ghibli films. I watched Spirited Away and Princess Mononoke.
A good weekend.
Okay. I watched all of Death Note. 37 episodes.
Okay.
37 episodes of Death Note. The first 10 episodes of Sword Art Online for some reason. And then all of Anohana, which is a 10-episode anime that's... It's actually got some really interesting storytelling. I might touch on it later if we have time, but almost all... not including Sword Art Online, because it's an isekai, right? All of those animes... and not... Okay, so Death Note specifically is what I'm trying to say. Death Note specifically is not all that intricate to its animation. There aren't any massive explosions. Almost all of what makes that anime fantastic is the story writing. You haven't seen Death Note.
I haven't.
Right?
No.
So Death Note, the premise is straightforward. I know this anime is 10 years old. Don't give me shit for this, okay? The premise is that a dude finds the Death Note, a notebook from the realm of Shinigamis, Japanese demons, that once a human's name is written into the book, they will die within 40 seconds. And if you specify how they will die the way that you have written if it's feasible for that human to do. Right?
Okay.
But you add someone's name to the book, they're dying, is the main premise. Our main character finds this book, decides to test it out on a local street mugger who shouts out his name for some reason before abusing a woman. And in 40 seconds, he has a heart attack and dies on the spot. And he realizes, oh shit, this thing is real. Goes home and then gets visited by the Shinigami, the demon of death, that owns the Death Note, or one of those Death Notes. It turns out to belong to somebody else, but he drops it in the human world, and he was like, why'd you drop this here? Are you here to judge me? Is there some sort of curse? He's like, no, I was bored. Wanted to see what would happen. There's nothing to do in my realm.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And then he's like, you do whatever you want to, just, 2 things. One, most of the people who pick up this notebook, or there have been stories of humans, when they get a hold of a Death Note, end up having a very cursed life. You seem to be doing okay so far. And 2, regardless of what happens, I'm going to be the one who writes your name in my Death Note when this is all over. And he says that in like episode 1. And he's like, regardless of what happens, I'm going to be the person who writes your name down. Regardless of how this ends, I'll be the one who kills you. And he was like, okay, whatever. Dude takes it upon himself to become justice. And he's watching the news report every day to see people who have committed violent crimes and either haven't been caught or have gotten extremely lax sentences, writes their name in the death note, and kills them. And that's what he wants to do. He wants to make a perfect world where rid of all criminals. And right away, like episode 2, the demon looks at him after he tells him this. He's like, I'm going to make a perfect world and I'm going to rule over it as perfect justice and get rid of all the criminals who haven't been punished, and I'm going to do the punishing. And the dude looks at him and goes, you realize that's going to leave you as the only person who's been doing any criminal activity after that, right? You will be the one source of injustice when that's all over. And I was like, bruh, like immediately I was caught onto it. But then the police start catching on because there's been 50 people who have been dying of a heart attack every single day.
Yeah, it's kind of noticeable.
Yeah, and they figure it out. And so they have this lead police investigator who turns out to be like a 24-year-old who's constantly eating desserts named L. And he's like, I have a feeling that I know what's going on. Clearly this dude has the ability to kill people on sight. I'm not sure. And he puts a test into play. And a news report comes up, and in the news report, it's L sitting at a desk, and it shows his full name. And he's like, I know who you are. I know you think you know what justice is, but this isn't justice. You're a murderer, just like every other murderer. You're no different than the people that you're killing. And immediately, the main character freaks out. And he goes, oh, yeah? Well, let's see what you think about this. Writes his name in the death note. Dude dies live on the air. And it's like, oh, of course we saw this coming. But it also shows you his descent. He's already not being justice. He's already killing out of vengeance and anger sort of thing, right?
Yeah, and I feel like that's a typical arc for any vigilante.
Right, exactly. But then the news report clicks over, and it's L. Or it's not L, it's the letter L on the screen. And he goes, gotcha. That wasn't me. That was a death row inmate. He was going to be sentenced to death tomorrow. But now I know that you know how to kill someone just based on their face and name. Not only that, but I didn't show this TV report everywhere in the world. We staggered it. So I know this dude died specifically when we showed it in the Kanto region of Japan. I know you're in my city, and I'm going to hunt you down. And I was like, bruh. Like,
that's next level.
The big brain levels are insane. And it just gets crazier and crazier. And L and Light, the main character, end up meeting. And Light has to try and kill L while working alongside him because his dad's the lead police investigator. He's trying to stay close. And the whole time, L almost immediately knows that it's Light. Almost immediately. But he's just such a like detail-oriented, weird, person that like he has to make sure he has it completely right. And Light's just doing all these shenanigans to try and get around like surveillance that he puts on his home and different tests that he does to see if he will or will not kill somebody, what his powers are and are not capable of doing. It's beautiful. But
doesn't he just have to stop killing people for a bit?
Well, so if he does, then it becomes really obvious who he is. Once right away, they start having FBI agents start tailing around people that they think might be doing the killing. So, if you start investigating 12 people and the killing suddenly stop, then it's like, well, okay, it's obviously these 12 people that we're watching sort of thing. There are no real plot holes. I'm not remembering exactly what it is that they did, but the story goes in a way that addresses all of that. And
I think I have a plot. I think I know how I get out of this. This is I don't know the whole story. This is my way out, okay?
So let me give a little bit more backstory. So a bunch of the police officers end up leaving the force. Because they're like, if this dude can kill just by seeing your face, I'm not investigating this. Fuck this. And they leave. So it leaves the main character's dad, who's the police sergeant, and then like 6 people who decided, you know what, I'm a real cop. I'm going to do this no matter what. And Light, who isn't there. He's always on a teleprompter in some other place. And they end up putting some piece of information about the fact that they realize that all the killings have been taking place after 3 p.m. So immediately, like without any other knowledge, Light's like, okay, it's somebody in the Kanto region and it's got to be a student. Like, because it's after 3 p.m., like it's obvious somebody who's in school during the day. And then the next day, people start dying before 3 p.m. Because Light can actually type people's name in the notebook, and then over like a course of several hours, he can say this person's going to die of a heart attack at 4 p.m. And then they'll die at the time that he puts. And then because of that, L immediately goes, okay, whoever this is has to be somebody who's one of your family members. immediately. Because the only way they could know that I suspected that this person was a student is the fact that I said this yesterday. And now that people are dying outside of the time frame that I gave, I'm confident that's got to be one of your family members.
And it's so like watching CSI.
Exactly.
No,
and it just
Criminal Minds.
It keeps going. It keeps going. L decides that there's a chance that it's the commissioner's son, and he wants to have stuff installed in his house. So he has video cameras and tapes installed in the house. Lights already ahead of him. Sticks a piece of tape in his door and a piece of pencil lead at the top. He comes home and he sees that the tape's been reapplied, but the lead's been broken. So he was like, my mom and sister wouldn't have been noticeable enough to see the tape and replace the tape, but the lead's been broken and somebody missed that. I think my dad's investigating. Walks in, doesn't write anything, doesn't turn on the TV, doesn't do any of that. Ends up finding a way to write names into the death note without watching the TV news reports. He's got like a small camera or a small TV and a bag of potato chips. It's a whole meme. And then people end up dying, but they have surveillance of Light just sitting at home, not watching the news report. How could he know that these criminals' names have been advertised? Okay, so we'll lessen off a little bit. But then another thing happens. Then they start catching on to him again. And it's beautiful, dude. It's absolutely beautiful. You got to watch it, man.
Yeah, I might have to.
I don't want to be the dude telling you to watch Death Note in 2020. It's kind of cringe, TBH. But
I'm sorry.
That show is not particularly artistic heavy. Honestly, if you had that level of voice acting and that good of a story set in place, and it was really just like PowerPoint slides just showing each other's face with different expressions, keep the animation at an absolute minimum, like if that's the thing that costs the most, it wouldn't be as good as Death Note is now, obviously. But, there's a lot of stuff that you could trail back on, save money on the thing, and still put out a piece of content that I would still have thoroughly enjoyed. Because the animation had very little to do with how much I rave about that anime now.
Yeah, no, that definitely was a good pitch, to be honest.
I mean, it was great. I give it a 9. It's one of only 2 9s I've given on my anime list.
Ooh. That's pretty good. That's a pretty good recommendation then.
Yeah, you should watch it if you get the chance. It takes about like 11 hours to get through all of it though, so maybe don't try and watch it in 2 days like I did. But
yeah, Did you watch any other anime?
Did I do what?
Did you watch any other anime this weekend?
I did, yes. So that one specifically is after watching it, I felt more confident in my life goal of trying to open what I'm calling Studio Sumito, my animation studio, someday down the road. It might just be my YouTube channel and I just upload animated skits or whatever I end up doing, but I like the idea of doing like a full out storyline and I like the idea of world building. Does that get you going the way it gets me going?
It definitely gets me going, probably more so than finding an actual story.
I love world building. I love the way that Futurama had their world building. Everything, it's futuristic, sure, but they didn't go overly over the top with how futuristic the city was. They still had cars, hover cars, cool, whatever. They still have bikes, they still have museums, but everything's just a little bit more futuristic, and usually in a gimmicky way.
Which is probably more realistic.
Which is probably more realistic, yeah. But the world building is so good. Bender's a robot. That's just normal. We have aliens, Martians, whatever. Professor Farnsworth, yeah, their job is a delivery service. Like that's still a thing. They didn't make teleporters that automatically deliver stuff. No, you still got to drive it to places. You got to take the spaceship, deliver this and that.
It's really the king of queens of animation.
Yeah, exactly. But world building is fantastic. Where the fuck was I going with this? Anyway, I watching Death Note.
That's a funny point because, like, I watch so much Naruto that it's funny because Naruto does good world building in a soft world building, but like physically, like locations, I could tell you so little. They don't care. Anything. Yeah. Physical, like there's like some names for some locations and like some like points of interest, but like it's got a general feel but nothing concrete to it.
Yeah, Studio Ghibli does that a lot too, which seems weird because a lot of their stories are otherworldly in essence, but Studio Ghibli does a fantastic job of soft world building where they actually very quickly let you know the rules of the world that you're in and what to expect to be realistic and what to subvert your expectations of realism in that particular movie. But you very quickly learn the rules of, like, you've seen Spirited Away, right?
Yeah.
So I watched Spirited Away and Princess Mononoke over the last weekend that I watched Death Note. And I'd never seen a Studio Ghibli film before that. Well, no, that's not true. So when watching Princess Mononoke, I realized I had actually watched that movie when I was very young.
Yeah.
But Spirited Away is... I don't need to tell you it's a good movie. Everybody knows it's a good movie. It's the only animated film to win an Oscar. Like, it's a fantastic movie, right? But it's
not really a hot take.
Yeah, it's a fantastic movie for such reasonable... It's not the first animated movie to depict adult themes or do gore or, wow, I could watch this in Hollywood. It wasn't any of that. It was literally just a beautiful story, a beautiful world, fantastic art, done in a way that it hadn't been done before. You know the story behind the main character of Spirited Away? Yamazaki modeled it after like one of his neighbor's daughters who was 10 at the time. And he felt that there weren't enough films for young girls that didn't show relationships with other guys that weren't romantic, basically. And he wanted to make a film for young girls that they could look at and be like, you are the hero of your own story. You don't need to be somebody else's wife to have value. You don't need to do this and that. Like, you can do this for yourself. And that's why Chihiro doesn't end up with the guy, the other male antagonist or side protagonist. What's it called? Anti-protagonist? What's a secondary protagonist called?
A side character?
Whatever, the other guy, the dude who ends up being the river spirit. She doesn't end up with him. She doesn't fall
spoiler.
in love with, she doesn't fall in love with him. She doesn't declare her love to anybody. You know, it's just she's a boss. She's going to get it done. And he spent all this time focusing on like how she would walk and how she would put on her shoes and how she would run as a little 10-year-old and all this stuff. Just little attention to detail. And it's something that hadn't been done, but not like in a crazy futuristic world exploding sort of way. Like just
I love this movie, but that thing about him being the river was like, I think someone's gonna correct me. I thought it was only foreshadowed once, and then all of a sudden at the end of the movie, his whole being is like, his whole story is wrapped up in like a span of 5 seconds.
Yeah, well,
and I was like, what?
At the beginning of the story, after she signs her name to Yababa, he does tell her, remember your name. That's how Yababa controls you. I've forgotten mine.
Yeah. Well, like there was one flashback where she's like, she touches him or something and she feels like a rush of water or something.
There's a couple flashbacks where, yeah, every time it's like she's drowning and she's trying to remember what it was. And it did very quickly come together like, oh yeah, by the way, you're not under Yababa's spell anymore. That is what it felt like at the end of the movie. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not a huge deal to me. I just felt like every time I watched it, I just feel like that came a little bit out of nowhere.
No, it did. It's not perfect in that regard. It's not the best story ever. 100%.
It's just really close.
I think people give it to Mononoke, I think, more often than not. I think Spirited Away is the more popular film, and a lot of people attribute Spirited Away as Miyazaki's like perfection movie, but like an equal number of people also say it's Mononoke Hime, and they think I agree that the story is much better in that film. Have you seen Princess Mononoke?
Yeah, but like you way long ago.
Yeah, so Princess Mononoke has a fantastic story, and it's not as artsy, it's not as colorful because it's much more realistic. That one isn't isekai. It doesn't teleport him to another universe. It's his home village, and it takes place more or less in the 1500s as they're still discovering iron and what have you. Yeah. But it's got some supernatural stuff, like when the forest god comes to life, he is this sort of giant amorphous, beautifully animated sort of see-through character and stuff. But that one has a tight, gorgeous little story about human involvement in nature and how nature will overtake us no matter what sort of thing, which is a big theme in all of Miyazaki's films, I think.
Yeah.
But I don't know, man. I want to work. Sorry, what?
That was the thing that Spirited Away at the start was like the overgrowth in like places where humans left.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, man. I don't see how you don't get hyped up about stuff like that. Not that you're not getting hyped up about stuff like that, but like I had this idea of trying to open an animation studio not too long ago, maybe 3-4 weeks, where I was like, this could be something that I could like build my life towards and try and like leave a little legacy for myself, try and make Studio Sumito. And then I watched those Studio Ghibli films with the intention of, I want to see what the best animation is. I want to see what the pinnacle. Miyazaki's old. He's done a lot of films, and he's very highly regarded in the world of anime, right? So let's see these movies. And after watching them, I'm just like, bro, like if I want to be able to do shit like that in my lifetime, like I have to start working towards that now, sort of thing. Like if I don't want to like be making my first movie when I'm 60 something, like I'm 25 now, like let's see how close I can get to getting better at voice acting, to getting better at animation, better at storytelling. Let me absorb all this information, and then maybe by the time I'm 30, I can start getting good at drawing. And maybe by the time I'm 35, I have enough money to try and do my first short animated whatever the fuck. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Have you seen, there's like a making of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse?
No, I haven't seen Into the Spider-Verse either.
It's worth watching, but also you'll like it because they do a whole thing on the animation, because that movie's animation style is so, I won't say super unique to it, but it encompasses like 3 different art styles within the movie itself.
Right.
There's a character that's more of a traditional Western style, which is the main part of the movie. There's one character who's a Looney Tunes style within the movie, and it works within the same rules of the universe. And there's one character who's a Japanese anime style, while the background is still a traditional Western.
Right.
And and also there's like, I think, a neo-noir detective Spider-Man, that it's like the blending of art styles, but there's like a making of it and how they animate a lot of scenes where there's like, it's hard to say without giving away stuff or explaining it to you.
Right.
But there's a scene where like he jumps off a building and like falls into the,
I've seen that. Yeah.
It's like the What's Up Danger scene.
Yeah.
And they said like how when they're animating it, if you actually looked at how they had to like model the city, like nothing makes sense. Like the buildings are all weird heights compared to each other, and like it only worked at certain camera angles the way they animate it.
Right.
But my favorite thing about that movie is there's like a scene where Peter Parker is teaching Miles how to swing rope.
And he's like falling into the city, right?
Well, no, he's like, they're swinging through like the trees with their webs.
Right. And
they're not in sync. So what they did was they animated, I think, Peter Parker at like 29 frames per second, but they made Miles like 30 frames per second. So they were a little off. But then as they got better at it, they slowly got in sync, and then their frames per second matched up.
This is the storyboards for Parasite when Bong Joon-ho was doing his storyboards for the movie. And in a lot of the storyboards, not only does he show what is going to happen in the storyboards, but he also says the lens length and the frame rate. So not only does he say this scene of the main character pulling the, tomato covered napkin out of the trash can is going to be shot relatively medium range, right? At 40 millimeters. But he also says that he specifically wants this at 24 FPS. He wants the slow cinematic. And then as they move over to the girl, he wants that one at 45 FPS. He wants it faster. He wants to be, or shoot it at 120 because we want to slow it down because we, like all this stuff. Like he uses the frame rate as a storytelling tool for how it makes, not only what you're seeing, but like how it makes you feel as you see these movements.
Yeah, because you can invoke a lot of emotion and certain responses based off of what changing up frame rates.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, man. I guess I didn't think about that. So animated Hollywood blockbuster films obviously have tremendous budgets. Into the Spider-Verse was received very well, right? People loved that movie.
Getting a second one, yeah.
Yeah, nobody looks down on that movie because it was animated, right?
Nope.
Well, that
Post Malone makes a hit song for it.
That bodes well. Didn't I say you did my pep? I don't know the words, but I know the song.
There's a part of the song in the movie, but they need to keep it PG. So when he gets to like some like part of the lyrics that are not PG, he does what you just did, where he like doesn't know the words, where he mumbles a little bit because he doesn't know the lyrics that well. But like they play it off like he's just a kid in his room,
right?
And you wouldn't even notice if you watch the movie because like they play it off so like naturally.
Yeah, I want to be one of these dudes, man.
That movie all around is amazing because the soundtrack to it is the best workout playlist I've ever had.
Bong Joon-ho. Is it really? He's
The
50.
Dude, you're halfway there.
Not even that. Like 50's young, dude. 50's young for like that movie's gorgeous. That movie is fantastic. Parasite might be one of my favorite movies ever. I loved Parasite. And he's done a number of movies, but like Snowpiercer was also very well received. And evidently also tackles on a lot of the nature will consume all aspects of the movies that he likes to work in. But like, yeah, like if I look at stuff like this and I go, if I want to be able to make a film like this, like list of 25 best film directors of the 21st century, like I want to be that. Stuff like that, like if you want to be an actor, cool. You basically just have to get a breakout film, which, you know, is luck more times than not. But to be a film director, to be a good storyteller is just work. At a certain point, you're going to have put in enough work where you are just the best man for the job. It doesn't matter what you look like. It doesn't matter if you speak English that well. It doesn't matter if the movie ends up being in the language that you want it to be, right? But if you make a good movie, it will transcend those things, right? Parasite isn't in English, right? When they did Princess Mononoke, when they did Spirited Away, it was only for a Japanese audience. They didn't care at all about like who was going to see it. They just cared about making it as good of a film as they could. And I feel like this is what I'm saying, man. Like we're so young, mid-20s. Like people start in their 40s and make it happen. Ricky Gervais didn't write The Office until he was like 38.
Wasn't he already established as a comedian?
No.
Oh.
He didn't do any stand-up prior to that. He literally walked into Sky One, the UK television agency, with the script for The Office, and they bought it. And they did the UK version. And then they did the US version after it got critically acclaimed because he did comedy well. And then he started doing stand-up comedy and his Netflix special and everything at the age of 50.
Good for him.
Like, I have so many examples. When Futurama started, 11 of the 12 writers were 38 or older. 11 of the 12 writers were almost 40 when Futurama started. 50 plus when that show ended. The youngest writer was 29. Like, if you want to be the greatest film director of all time, you've already watched enough movies to have a good idea of what makes a good or a bad story. If you even took a slight inkling into moving into filmmaking or story development or anime or whatever in your mid-20s, and then when you get a good opportunity, when you've got some money set aside, once you're in a place where you've left one job and you want to find something that gives you fulfillment because you're sick of what your day job is, you'd be beautifully set up to be able to make something like this happen, dude. You and me both, bro. A realization I've been having over the last couple of weeks that I've been thinking about pretty thoroughly in order to keep myself in high spirits.
I mean, it's definitely inspirational, bro.
You think, given time and effort, you think you can make something that would win a what's the one for movies? Emmys? Oscars?
Oscar.
You think you could win an Oscar?
In what category?
What mob movie, right? So
best... No, there's like best director, best writer. I could do sound design. There could be like cinematography.
Well, what would you want to do? I feel like cinematography is something that I would take a lot of pride in winning an award for.
That's what I was probably going to say the same.
Like
that sounds like...
Dude, a cinematic mafia film? Like, think about that. Bullets out of a Tommy gun? Like, those big, dark clubs that they have their meetings in, the cars that they're in. Like, you could do a cinematic AF mobster film, bro.
Yeah. Took place in the 1920s.
Yeah.
Someone has a random superpower because that's the twist.
Ooh, that's kind of stupid, but I'd like to see it.
You know what? It doesn't have to be. It's got to be different.
Hey, that's true.
Okay, if you ever going to make a movie where the character had a superpower, what power would it be? Like, just like it can't be like I don't want to say like it's like a groundbreaking one. It has to be like something like small. Like that would be like subtle. So
No,
it's not
I think
like,
that's what I'd want to do. It's probably a big portion of the fact that I just watched Death Note, but I think a very specific but powerful superpower that has, some small, specific, strict guidelines about what it can and cannot do, and making the film around the protagonist trying to use it to his advantage and the antagonist using the weak points of that superpower to his advantage, and just exploring the nuances of that would be beautiful. Like, you have the ability to kill somebody, but no, it can't be kill somebody. It probably would. So you have the ability to turn back time, but only to save someone's life. Only if it results in one less death. It's specifically one less death from whatever would have otherwise happened in that dimension. That's the only time you're allowed to turn back time. Who do you save? When do you save them? Does this create other issues? Who's going to be on the other side of that? Why would that person want to stop you from doing what you're doing? Maybe it's Father Time. Maybe it's the Grim Reaper, the underworld. Listen, human with the ability to turn back time, these people are supposed to be dying. They're dying for a reason. How can they be supposed to be dying? This woman was pregnant. She'd never done anything wrong in her life. Listen, there's always a reason for death, and then that becomes the show?
Yeah.
I'd want to do a super...
Now I feel silly because mine would be teleportation.
Go through your idea. Again, my idea is basically just Death Note, but it's bringing someone to life instead of killing them. But I would do a movie where I would say, let's say a detective is trying to bring down the mob. And he kind of like sneaks around and tries to get information on them, but he does that by being able to teleport. And I don't want to make it sound too much like Looper with his ability, with how it works. Right.
But it would probably be based on he has to like visualize it to go there. Or maybe he can sneak a item in, and he can always trade places with this one item.
Ooh, transmogrification, yeah.
Yeah, so say like he has like, let's say it's a chess piece. It's like he's the queen because you can move around.
Right.
Like across the board really easily. So if like he can like put her in a crate or in a box, and it gets delivered to a location he's trying to get to, boom, he can trade places with it.
Like the fucking kunai knives in Naruto?
Like with Minato.
Yeah. I don't know. You told me this once and I remembered.
Minato, because it's what my tattoo idea was for me and my cousins.
I still think that's one of the cooler tattoo ideas I've ever heard.
Yeah, like a group thing where like...
The meaning behind it. When you were like, we'd get it, and then it would just kind of be like, yeah, we're always there for each other, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, that's fucking deep, bro. That's a good idea for a tattoo. Nobody's going to knock you
for anyone who doesn't know, in the show, Minato can leave marks anywhere on items or people.
Right.
And if a mark's there, he can teleport to them. Or he can trade places with them. But the two powers that always get to me are speed and teleportation. They're not the same, but they can be used interchangeably in a lot of situations.
Right.
But it's just like that's why the Flash is like my favorite superhero.
Really?
I feel like it. Yeah.
Why is super speed though? Teleportation kind of makes sense, especially if you put some guidelines around how it works. Why super speed?
So teleportation, if you're making a story, is probably a lot more viable to the world than super speed.
Right.
But super speed has a lot of, I think, limitations because your villain almost has to certainly be the same as your hero for it to be believable.
Like also have the ability to teleport, or you mean one
speed, like speed versus speed?
Oh, sure, yeah, okay.
It's really hard for a villain against a superhero with speed to actually carry weight.
What about time slow?
There is a villain in the
Flash universe that does exactly. Yeah,
I think they're like the turtle, and like they can emit a bubble, and when you're in the bubble, time slows, but time moves the same outside the bubble.
Right. Oh, interesting.
The Flash is corny, but like if you like corny, it's definitely worth watching.
My favorite superhero is Iron Man, but nobody ever like goes, "Oh, really? Why?" Like they just kind of get it. Oh, you like the billionaire playboy who literally has every superpower if you give him the time to build it. Yeah, sure.
It's basically Batman.
It's more. It's if Batman wasn't so methodical. Yeah, a cocky Batman is a good description of Tony Stark's character, and I fuck with it.
Can you imagine if the original plan for Iron Man went through? Who was supposed to play him instead of
who was
Robert Downey Jr.? Tom Cruise.
I wouldn't be too upset with that.
It wouldn't be the same.
I loved him in
Live, Die, Repeat.
No, the Gladiator.
Oh yeah.
Or Gladiator,
That's
right?
That's Russell Crowe, I think.
Gladiator? Oh no. Then Spartacus? No. What's the movie? Am I not thinking of Brad Pitt? What?
Gladiator is Russell Crowe. And Joaquin Phoenix.
No, it's Brad Pitt. Oh, Troy. Sorry.
Yeah.
Troy. That actually also might be one of my favorite movies ever. I loved Troy.
Troy?
You didn't like Troy?
No. I wasn't with that era of movies.
You weren't with it, like you didn't like it, or you haven't seen it?
No, I just wasn't a fan of it. I watched it, I just couldn't keep focused.
The first time I watched Troy was in a sociology class that I took in high school, and my teacher broke down all the pieces of mythology that went around with everything.
Oh, you know I fuck with mythology, though.
Yeah. No, you should really watch Troy with, like, maybe commentation or something. But Achilles' character, like, when he goes into war and everything, obviously he's got the weak point or whatever, but he had like a gay lover that was
Patroclus.
Also what?
Patroclus.
Yeah, that was also fighting alongside him, and he went into battle. His Patroclus, not Troy, while Troy was asleep, and went into battle, and people saw his long blonde hair and assumed it was Achilles. Killed him.
You're telling me the literal story of the Iliad.
Right, but it's in the thing. He gets killed. Like, you wouldn't, if you didn't know mythology, you would just be like, oh, he gets killed, and then Troy's pissed off. Fucking Achilles is pissed off, and he's like, he walks up to the walls of Rome? Question mark?
Troy.
Walks up to the walls of Troy, and he goes up to the king, and he's like, you took someone who loves for me, 1v1 me. And he sends down his best son, and they go toe to toe. Achilles.
What's his name?
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure you know.
It's Hector.
Yeah, sure. Comes down. They have this beautiful 1v1, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. Brad Pitt wins. Yeah. Spoiler. Right. But he does land one blow across his cheek, like slices his cheek. And my teacher was like, it's supposed to be a testament to just how good of a swordsman he is. He's not going to beat Achilles, but the fact that he landed a hit is like, that's as good as a human's going to go up against, a demigod, basically.
Yeah.
Kills him, drags his body around the entire city for
like
days.
3 times.
For days. Until the dad finally visits him sleeping on the beach, and he's like, listen, we can have our war, but give me my son. Let me put tokens over his eyes. This isn't doing anything for you. It's just beautifully, it's a good movie, I feel.
Yeah, I know. I know the story so well.
That's true. I guess nothing would really surprise you in it. Me learning the mythology alongside watching that movie really sort of made me. I guess it isn't all that impressive to just make a movie about an old mythological story that's been told over so long, but
just shot for shot.
Pretty much, yeah. Anyway, that's a thing.
There's a YouTube channel, Extra Credits, which is doing like a story of like how, and it did a recent video on how an archaeologist found the actual site of Troy.
Right.
And like he thought it was like really, really ancient. And like there's like layers to like these ancient cities. So like you keep digging down, you'll find the ancient city.
Right.
And like apparently like the dude blew up the actual city of Troy on accident trying to get to it. Because he misjudged how old it was.
Oh no.
And so like he like straight up like blew it up with TNT.
Idiots. Should use redstone.
Right? What were we talking about before this aside?
Have you seen the SpongeBob anime?
Oh yeah, we were talking about that. Yeah, I did, but you're gonna make fun of me because I saw it through Critical's video the first time.
I wasn't gonna make fun of you. It was just the 4th time you said, yeah, I've seen it. I watched Critical's video on it, and I was like, bro, you gotta actually watch stuff.
I didn't say it through the podcast. I said it beforehand, but now we've referenced it. So,
the SpongeBob anime is a fan-made animation starring the characters from SpongeBob in a pretty stereotypical, following almost every traditional anime trope they could in this little 13-minute skit. I shouldn't say skit. It's a legitimate thing. They've got an opening song. They've got Japanese voice actors. It's actually really well done. And I want to see more stuff like it. And just like watching Studio Ghibli, what the fuck is happening here? Just like watching Studio Ghibli, it really just sort of inspired my, nonsense idea of trying to open an animation studio. Because it's like, if a handful of YouTubers can make something like this come to life and it'd be so fucking good. Like, if someone just dedicated their time to just making more stuff like this, I feel like it could really be a thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The thing I like about this a lot is that like it's very stylized, but you can still tell what's happening if you knew the original. You know what I mean? Like you know what story they're doing based off of some of the shots.
Yeah.
Like it still makes sense.
Wait, explain which ones you mean specifically.
Like some of like the scenes they pull from like in the opening credits I remember seeing, like I remember that from like the original SpongeBob, like because they do like shot for shot remakes.
Oh, I thought you meant of the anime they were parodying.
No, I meant like it looks completely different, but you can still.
But
see
you can tell they're in the Krusty Krab. You can tell they're in the jellyfish fields. All that you mean?
But you can tell like it's literally shot for shot, just a different style.
Yeah.
In a lot of circumstances.
It's pretty high quality. We had a bit of an issue where it got taken down because of the new rules that YouTube has regarding COPPA, one of which specifically outline using children's cartoon characters means that your video would be directed towards kids. So the creator of the SpongeBob anime, who is, I will find it, don't worry, who is Narmac on YouTube and on Twitter, had the video taken down because he marked that it wasn't for kids, but obviously YouTube, seeing that it's got SpongeBob in the title and SpongeBob cartoon characters, is going to go, no, this is definitely for kids. Within about 24 or 48 hours, it's got taken back up as of about 2 hours ago of us recording this. So it's back online. I will link it in the description of the YouTube video if you're listening to this. If you guys want to, or just look up SpongeBob anime on YouTube. It'll be the first result. It's at like 3 million views now. 5 million views now?
Critical's video will be there.
8 million views now. It's done 5 million views in the last 24 hours. Jesus Christ. Go watch it. Son. Go support stuff like this. If stuff like this continues to be something that entertains you, like the only reason that people don't do animation is because they think that more people want to watch reality TV shows and more stuff about the Kardashians. But if you appreciate stuff like this and you support it, like the world's, there's so much stuff you could do.
They're always going to make stuff like the Kardashians, though. Do you know how little like budget that needs to be a thing?
I mean, yes, but I feel like animation's getting like reality
how
TV. How
cheap was it to make the Jersey Shore? Like probably dirt cheap.
I mean, you still have to pay like location fees and licensing for like the places that you're at and the clubs that they visit and things like that. It's cheap compared to like a movie, sure. But you get animation down to the point where you start to wonder like, hey, it's going to be cheaper for us to get voice actors and animate this than it would for us to get real people. And if we do it that way, we could animate the main character look exactly like we want her to instead of hiring someone who's close enough, but their acting skills better than the real actress that we thought would be a perfect fit for the main character. You don't need to worry about any of that. Everything always looks perfect. Explosions are in. No stories get told differently because they didn't have the budget to do it a different way as far as scenes and locale and stuff is concerned. In an anime, if you want an explosion, if you want a demon, if you want car crashes and you want it to be realistic, it's all available to you. It's all possible. And I feel like
you won't have a scene where a car explodes and the screen, because you couldn't afford the budget to have an explosion, you just wrote on screen video FX car explosion?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
That was my favorite moment in Velocipaster.
I hate everything about what you're saying right now.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
I think you told me that you watched a movie called Velocipaster, and I was like, is it what I think it is? And you were like, no, it's velociraptors that are pastors. And I was like, that's what I thought it was.
Oh, yeah, it was exactly what you thought it was. But I love the scene where the scene right after the pastor goes, yeah, your parents died. That's what parents do.
Brilliant.
10 out of 10 rating.
One last thing I want to touch on is I watched one more anime over last weekend, and it's this anime called Anohana. The Japanese name is Why am I doing this? Ano himita hano no nami wa bukutashi wa mada shiranai, which is we couldn't remember the name of the flower that we saw that day, something like that. The flower we saw that day. We still don't know the name of the flower we saw that day, which I think is... I didn't give it a super high score. I gave it a 6. It's a very slow burn, dramatic slice of life story. But it's kind of beautiful. I'm going to break it down for you really quick. Episode 1... You sound
confused by it.
Huh?
You sound confused by it.
I was kind of. I'm caught between the fact that I didn't really super enjoy the anime for what it was, because it's a slow burn, drama. But it's done so well, and it's kind of so different from other stuff that I've seen that I want to give it a higher score, because it really is kind of beautiful. Episode 1, the main character wakes up, and he's visited by what he assumes is the ghost of a childhood friend who died like 5 years ago. And she's older, she's his age, and she's like, hey, what's going on? And he's like, what are you doing here? You're dead. And she's like, I don't know. And so he proceeds among his life, and over the course of 11 episodes, you slowly realize that there are other people who were a part of that friend group that all sort of fell out after the girl died. And the girl says that she has a wish, and the main character feels like if he helps her complete whatever wish that she had, maybe she'll be at peace and move on to the afterlife. So he recruits the help of all the other people that he used to be friends with but now hasn't talked to in years. They can't see this ghost of the girl who's passed away, and at first they're trying to humor him because he's a bit secluded and hasn't been to school in so long. His dad doesn't make him go ever since his mom passed away, and so they're just happy to see him. But then slowly over time, they visit the dead girl's mom. She begins to get very angry towards them for bringing up her dead daughter and acting like it's all a game. All the other kids start to get very mad at the main character for pretending like he's seeing this girl who died years ago and torturing them with the thoughts of them not being able to have saved her from falling in the river and drowning. And then slowly by the end of the anime, you learn that they all sort of had their own issue and resentment and guilt about how they treated her in her moments before dying that day. And then once finally accepting that and launching off this rocket, which they learned was the wish that she had, she wanted to fire a rocket up into the air, and they had to go through these hoops to make it happen. They see her right before the episode ends. And they're like, oh, we see her. And they all apologize. They all say that they love her. And then she feels at peace and then disappears into the air. And you assume she's now passed on into heaven, now being at peace with all of her friends or what have you. It's kind of beautiful, right?
Yeah. Harder sell than what you do with Death Note.
Yeah, I mean, it's only 11 episodes. Again, totally wasn't really my cup of tea. I gave it a 6. I know people have given it a full-on 10, and I get that. But I don't know if I'd spend another 4 or 5 hours watching it with somebody, is sort of the test I put it through. I'd recommend it.
It's to each their own.
Yeah. I mean, there's plenty of animes that I will watch 100 times over, and I will watch it with you. They're usually comedies or, Evangelion. But
yeah, I started rewatching Naruto just because I have an emptiness in my life.
I'm
watching with my sister because it's her first time.
You don't need to justify it. Is she old enough to get the tattoo with you and your cousins?
She tattooed herself, so I mean.
Oh, okay. So yeah, probably.
Yeah, probably.
Cool. Well, that's most everything that I've got. You got any closing remarks here, Alex?
Don't forget to tip your wagers.
Don't forget to tape your wagers.
Yep.
You heard it here, folks. Thanks so much for making it to the end of the episode. If you guys want, make sure you subscribe so that you catch probably pretty irrelevant videos compared to this one, but also this one every week on the Shpodcast. Also available on iTunes and Spotify. Again, I don't know why I say that at the end of episodes. You've already listened this far, so that information doesn't help you anymore.
It's always for the next.
It's always for the next. Yeah, the next one's also available there, so maybe watch the next one there. Listen to the next one there. Feel the next one there. Become the marble. I'll catch you guys next week. Shpeace.
Shpoos.